Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, welcoming you to episode 218 of the Patrick Come Lately talk show. Welcome to the show. Looking forward to a great evening. Lots to talk about this evening. I've got some good news from across the pond. Also want to do a review of an ebook, a great ebook that you can download, 11 Rules for Debating Leftists. And let's see what else we've got there. Well, that'll probably keep us busy for most of the show, but I got one or two other things should that be necessary. Want to say hi to all my regular listeners, whether you listen live like Paul, who's just joined in the chat room there, or if you listen to any of the recordings, if you listen to the Red State Talk Radio Network, who rebroadcast this show at regular interval, and of course the land-based stations in Texas and South Carolina and Arizona who are rebroadcasting Red Talk Radio. Perhaps you're listening there. To all of you, thank you for coming. This is just an hour a week that I'm able to push out at the moment. But it's I have fun. I hope you have fun listening. And on with the show. First thing I do want to say, we are, today is the day after Memorial Day, at least if you're listening live. Obviously, if you're listening to the recordings, might be a little later. And I want to ask you one question. Did you remember? Because that's what Memorial Day is about. Not did you remember that it was Memorial Day, but did you remember what Memorial Day is about? It's actually a memorial to those who gave everything for our freedom. And sometimes it's very difficult to think how people fighting in the jungles of Vietnam, even in Iraq, so to say, well, that's so far away, that's not going to impact us. But it does. Obviously, those that fought in the World Wars, it was a little more obvious, although the First World War, I don't think really there was any danger of anything happening to the US. Second World War was different. Japan was attacking on one front. Germany was making plans if Britain hadn't fought so valiantly and if America hadn't actually helped Britain, Hitler would have created weapons with which he could have attacked America. So in that respect, you know, the fighting in World War II, that was to protect America. But the other places I mentioned, not so much so. But even so, those people gave their everything and will not be around, cannot enjoy what we enjoy. Does it make a difference? Yes, it does, because think about it. If we just withdrew into a shell and basically closed the borders, well, that's a nice idea, but that's a whole separate topic. Close the borders, just shut ourselves off. We can't live like that today. We're in a world where lots of things are going on, and so we have to be involved. Sometimes too much so, but we cannot ignore what's going on outside there. And mentioning that, this sort of worldwide things going on, I do want to mention one point. My son was rather fortunate. He and his wife have just spent a little bit over a week in India. They are actually in the air on their way back to the US. They're coming back via Europe. They'll stay off to see family over there in the Netherlands, and then head back to the US. So they'll be arriving there tomorrow evening. But thanks to modern technology, they were able to talk to us while they were there. And so we had some chats, and one of the things struck me. My son said to me, "Dad, I remember what India was like," and we were very fortunate to go there in, I think it was 98 for a 10-day, 2-week trip around India. He said, "We traveled around then and we saw a lot of things, and this was great." He said, "But so much has changed since then. Number one, things have got a lot more modern." He said a lot of the old world charm of India, the dusty bazaars and things like that, the markets, they've all been replaced by malls and shiny shops. He said it's very obvious, whereas in the past you used to have very rich people, a middle class, and then poor people. He said there is a huge divide now. You've got lots of money, or you have nothing. But the one that struck me the most, he said, and everywhere you go, whether it's to the supermarket, whether it's to the mall, when you arrive at the hotel, you have to go through one of those electromagnetic gates. They check you for weapons. You have to put your hand baggage, your purse, whatever, through an X-ray machine, almost everywhere you go. Thank you, Al-Qaeda, because that's who we have to thank. This is the people who say they represent the religion of peace, are forcing us to do all this, spoiling a way of life just because they disagree with us. Excuse me. If that's not bullying, I don't know what is. But anyway, back to Memorial Day. So did you remember who gave everything? And my regular listeners will know towards the end of last year, my father passed. And, of course, he was a World War II veteran. He didn't give his life in that war, but he still deserves, I think, a memorial because he did give up a lot. And in the show just after his death, I told a lot of his story. I'm not going to go into it tonight again. But just very quickly, he left his country to fight tyranny. As he was leaving, he was being chased on two sides by two different kinds of tyranny, the Germans and the Russians. He managed to escape, ended up in the UK, fought the war there as a coastal command pilot, not the flashy flyboys of the fighters, or not the well-known flyboys of the bombers, but still in an important role and a very dangerous one that he did. But at the end of the war, he couldn't return to his home country because of the tyranny that had been imposed there. And that's what I remember him for. The fact that he couldn't return to his country because a tyranny had taken over and he was forced to make a new life elsewhere. So he gave up a lot as well, even though he didn't give up his life, but he gave that up. And so that's my remembrance for this Memorial Day. Okay, folks, I did promise you some good news, so let's have some good news. And the good news is that I read a headline and it said earthquake in the UK, and I thought, well, they do very occasionally get earthquakes over there, but it was sort of in big letters, and I thought, such a big earthquake, we don't normally get anything like that. Well, what happened in the UK? Last week there were elections, not your normal sort of national elections, but they had elections for the European Parliament. As you know, the UK is part of the European Union, that sort of bureaucratic monster that has been created in Europe. And so every so often you get to vote a certain number of people from your country to the European Parliament. Also, at the same time, on this election day, they had local councils around the country that were electing new members to the local councils. So anyway, so what happened in the UK? Well, as the headline said, it was an earthquake. There was a huge sea change in the political scene in the UK. The political party that benefited most in this particular election was the UKIP, the UK Independence Party. This is a right-wing conservative party that basically has an anti-immigration policy, not anti-immigrants, mind you, an anti-immigration platform. Let's make it very clear. They're not anti-people, they are anti-bringing in people that are not needed and shouldn't be coming. They are also not very positive about the European Union. The name Independence Party probably says a little bit more about their platform as well. And up to now in Britain, they've basically had a three-party system with a bunch of very small ones on the side, but because of the way things were voted for normal elections, they have wards, we call them precincts, and basically you vote a member from a precinct, from a ward, to Parliament. Now, for the European Union, it was all done on proportional votes. In other words, if you get 50% of the votes, you will get 50% of the seats in that election. So why was this a huge sea change? Well, because UKIP barreled to the front, and for the first time, probably ever, in what they are calling a form of national election, because it was everybody across the country was allowed to vote. The UKIP was the party that garnered the highest percentage of votes. This has never happened before. It was always either the Conservatives or Labour, with the Liberal Democrats very occasionally coming in second, but most of the time coming in third. Well, in the European elections now, the UKIP was 3% ahead of Labour. Labour was 2%, 1.5% ahead of the Conservatives, and the Liberal Democrats were just way, way down, very low. Now, these sort of elections, normally 2, 3, 4, 5 percentage points are huge differences. The UKIP went from one member of the European Parliament, their leader called Nigel Farage. He was the only one, and he was constantly railing against the bureaucrats in Brussels. They went from 1 to 23. I mean, that is a sea change in one election cycle to grow that much. That is just absolutely unbelievable. The reason I say it's good news is because it shows we have a chance. We have a chance as Conservatives. We just need to keep fighting, and people will listen and people will do things. Well, there was a lot more that went on in that election. So to say, well, it's that's the UK, that's Europe. What does it have to do with us? I think there are some pointers there. And after this commercial break, after this commercial break, I'll talk a bit more and tell you why I think it's relevant for our midterms that are coming up. So stick with me. I will be back after these messages. That is, if I play the right
Are you
message.
paying too much for your car insurance policy? Have you shopped your current plan in the last year? If you haven't, then you probably are paying too much. You could save up to 40% on your current car insurance coverage just by making a free call right now. Doesn't it make good sense to pay less for something you have to pay for anyway? And car insurance is one of those things. You got to have car insurance, whether you have one car or 10 cars. So why not see if you can pay a lot less for it right now? One quick 3-minute call and you could save hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. We'll compare the leading car insurance companies and get you coverage that could save you up to 40% on your car insurance. Call now for a free quote. Call 800-603-9980. 800-603-9980. 800-603-9980. 800-603-9980. That's 800-603-9980.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich, working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare, having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network, you'll find hundreds of work-from-home opportunities that you can literally start today and be earning money as soon as next week. Go to freedom112.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss. Get out of the rat race. Work from home. Go to freedom112.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom112.com. Go to freedom112.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You be the boss. Go to freedom112.com.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And this is Stephen, your Patrick Come Lately. Thank you for sticking with me through that break. We were talking about the earthquake in the UK, where the UKIP, the conservative right-wing group, had a huge upset in the European elections. And as I was saying, well, how does it apply here? Well, as I said before the break, I think it shows that we as conservatives shouldn't give up. If we keep plugging away, we can get people on our side. And basically, people in the UK are showing that they are fed up with the bureaucracy of Brussels, which I would equate to the bureaucracy of Washington. This was purely a vote against Brussels, at least in the Euro elections, and I'm going to come back to that because there's also a lot of results other countries around Europe. But the UKIP, it was not only a protest vote against Brussels, it was a protest vote against the establishment. I love seeing that because the UKIP also had huge wins in the local council elections. Now, the Labour Party grew in terms of size. The Conservatives, who are the ruling party right now, together with the Liberal Democrats, lost a lot. The Liberal Democrats, just like in the Euro elections, just took an absolute bashing. Over 40% of their councillors, and Liberal Democrats have tended to be quite successful in the local councils, where they never really made a huge impact in the national elections, other than recently, and where they became a partner with the Conservatives. But anyway, and the UKIP in the council elections went from 2 to 163 councillors. Now, we have to be honest and say this was spread across a number of cities and councils, so there's no one council where they actually took power. But this is a wake-up call for the political establishment in Britain, because everybody thought that the UKIP was a fringe party, and they've shown that this is not true. And the same goes with the European elections. So people will be looking very differently, very, very differently at the UKIP when the next elections come along. Anyway, so that was one part of the good news. Now, but there is more. The more is the fact that it wasn't just the UKIP in the UK that kind of voted against the establishment. It was also all across Europe. While the strongest, and there is a European-wide centre-right party that still holds power, they have lost a lot of their seats, and therefore they're going to have to work together and form an alliance with other parties, probably the centre-left, in order to remain in power. But there was a huge, strong showing by many anti-EU parties across the whole continent, which shows that people are not happy with this bureaucratic establishment in Brussels. And as I said before, I just equate that with Washington. It's exactly the same thing. People just don't want to have these bureaucrats, this establishment, out of touch with people, ruling their lives, and people are doing that. So now if we look Britain, right, the UKIP, one of their platforms is to get rid of the European Union, and one of their MEPs, as they're called, member of the European Parliament, said, I am basically going to Brussels to make myself redundant. I want to put myself out of a job because I want to either get the UK out of the European Union, which is really what they want to do, or even have the European Union and Brussels much reduced in power. Also, Denmark, France, and Greece specifically had huge anti-EU votes. And again, so this shows this isn't just one country, this isn't just one set of people. All across the European Union, people were voting against the European Union, showing that they're fed up with these bureaucrats. And of course, this changed makeup of the European Parliament is important. The European Parliament was supposed to have considerably less power than national governments, right, in determining the direction of the Union. But like all bureaucratic monsters, its authority has been growing. Now, coming up is a new trade deal between the United States and Europe that the Obama administration has made a priority. And far left and far right parties in Europe have been highly critical of the proposed agreement. So now, after this vote, I think the centre right and centre left are going to have to think twice about what they do. They're also going to have a say, but notice, only have a say in electing the successor to the current president of the European Commission. It's the top job, so basically the president of the European Union. This is, notice, the new parliament has a say in electing. They don't actually elect, so it's not like we have our electors, and the people in the different countries don't say who elects. It's actually done by the national governments. So in actual fact, whoever succeeds there really isn't elected in the true sense of the word. They are appointed by the political establishment, by the other governments. So a huge vote against the European Union, coupled with huge apathy, the lowest turnout in years. So again, this is another thing. Let's see what happens in the midterms. Are we going to have a low turnout? Are we Conservatives going to get out there and drum up the base and get them out? Because now is our opportunity to do it again. And if we can then keep the momentum and do it in 2016, we have to show that we can do it. They did it in Europe. We can do it over here as well. Let's see, what else do we have here? Yeah, so France, the very far right-wing did very well. The National Front there, now they are really far out, so that in some ways is not good. Marine Le Pen, who is the daughter of the original leader of the National Front, they won a huge victory there, and basically on a stridently anti-immigration message and an anti-immigrant message, to be very honest. They are very right-wing. In Greece, and we know Greece has had lots of problems recently because of the fact that their debt was so huge and they were having to cut back on everything, very high unemployment because basically they can't afford to pay for all the government jobs. They can't afford to pay for people, everybody retiring at 50 years old as they'd been promised. People are eating from dustbins because the government just doesn't have the money to do anything. And so the anti-austerity crusader also had a very good day, and it's a very leftist party. Obviously, they're anti-austerity. They just want to spend their way back into a strong economic position, and we know that won't work. On the other hand, the far-right Golden Dawn Party, and that's another one of these extreme right-wings, verging on the neo-Nazi, actually came in third as well. So that's and that also sends some members to the European Parliament. And they are also in of themselves very anti the European Parliament. So interesting in Greece. In Italy, it was viewed as the elections were viewed as a referendum on the new party that had been in power for just 3 months, and they seem to have done reasonably well. And in Germany, Angela Merkel, the centre-right, and their sister party, the kind of centre-left party, were projected to be the winners because the Germans like the stronger integrated European Union because they're leading the European Union. So it's like California and New York saying, yeah, we think that Washington and all these huge federal things are very good because they're sending us all this money, whereas the free states like New Hampshire, like Oregon, like Idaho, like wherever, the Dakotas are all saying, no, we don't want Washington to be so strong. So, of course, the party that the anti-Euro party in Germany that did quite well was called Alternative for Germany, Alternative für Deutschland, and they only came in fourth. But their leader said it's springtime in Germany. Some flowers are blooming, others are wilting. He said, it's our time is coming. Okay, folks, I think it's almost time for our next commercial break here. So stick with me, and I will be back right after these messages.
Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing and other restrictions apply. If you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Only Dish brings you the best in entertainment for less than $20 a month. Cut the cable and don't get directed. Switch to Dish because at just $19.99, Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. It's so simple. The same channels cost less with Dish. So since you can't see the difference, don't pay the difference. Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Get premium movie channels free for 3 months, starting at just $19.99. Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. Call now to save with Dish. Dial 1-800-865-5017. That's 1-800-865-5017. The same channels for less than $20 a month. Dish. Call 1-800-865-5017 for details.
Why spend more than you have to on your life insurance? Did you know that term life insurance rates have fallen over 60% in the last 15 years? At the Life Insurance Quote Line, we monitor the rates, features, and financial strength of hundreds of life insurance products. For example, a healthy 40-year-old can protect his family with $500,000 of 10-year level term for less than $20 a month. Rates for women are even lower. And don't forget to ask us about the new term life policies that guarantee your money back even if you don't die. Since 1986, we've helped tens of thousands of people just like you save a fortune on their life insurance. Why not find out how much you can save? Write down this number and call today for your free quote. 1 5-minute call is all it takes. Call 800-915-9734. 800-915-9734. That's 800-915-9734. Rates, policy forms, and availability vary by state.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And thank you for sticking with me. We're into the second half of the show, and just want to give you a reminder. I say this most shows. I know a lot of my listeners are not listening to the show live. I appreciate those of you, like my old friend Rex, who is back in the chat room, and of course Paul is there as well. And anyone else who's listening live, the statistics show that there are 1 or 2 other people there. Click on the little green speech bubble at the bottom right-hand part of the screen. You should be able to join us in the chat room there. Let me know that you're out there. But anyway, so those are the live listeners. But if you're not a live listener, but you've got comments about the show, something you like, something you didn't like, questions, etc., please contact me. Well, how do you contact me? You can contact me by doing the following, listening to the following little clip. If you would like to comment on any of the topics discussed on the show, please email me via stephan@patrickcomelately.us or go to the show's website, www.patrickcomelately.us, and click on the contact button. You can also write your comments on the show's Facebook page. Just search in Facebook for the Patrick Come Lately Show. And actually, that's just search in Facebook for Patrick Come Lately. My Patrick Come Lately Facebook ID was deleted. Part of the reason being that I had 2, a private and a Patrick Come Lately one, and Facebook terms say you're only supposed to have 1. So now I have 1, but it is my nickname there is Patrick Come Lately. They do allow me to do that, and so search for me there, and you can always contact me via Facebook, or you can, as the little promo said, email me. I do love to hear from my listeners. Anyway, new topic for the second half of the show, and I think you'll like this one. This is a very interesting ebook that I think everybody should read. And the book is called How to Debate Leftists and Destroy Them, or 11 Rules sorry, I think the actual title is 11 Rules for Debating Leftists. But the subtitle is How to Debate Leftists and Destroy Them. It's been written by Ben Shapiro, who's an editor at Breitbart.com. And you can pick up this ebook at www.truthrevolt.org. Lots of interesting stuff in it. I'm going to quote a few bits of it, and then we'll have a look at the rules. But I want to read to you a little bit from the book where Ben Shapiro explains why this debating with leftists is important. And it's talking about the Romney-Obama discussions, if you like, in the lead up to the last election. Here's what presidential candidate Mitt Romney said about Barack Obama. Barack Obama is not a very good president. He said Barack Obama doesn't do a very good job on the economy. He said that Obama's foreign policy has a lot of holes in it. He said Obama has done a pretty poor job across the board of working in bipartisan fashion. But Romney added, Obama's a good guy. He's a good family man, a good husband, a man who believes in the basic principles espoused by the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. He's not someone you should be afraid of in any way. Essentially, Romney's campaign slogan was this: Obama, good guy, bad president. And here's what Barack Obama and his surrogate said about Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney is the worst guy since Mussolini. Mitt Romney is the guy who straps dogs to the top of cars. Mitt Romney is the kind of guy who wants to put you all back in chains. Mitt Romney is leading a war on women, and in fact compiled a binder full of women that he can then use to prosecute his war. Mitt Romney is the kind of guy who would specifically fire an employee so that 5 years later his wife would die of cancer, thanks to lack of health insurance. Mitt Romney would take his money, put it in an overseas bank account, specifically to deprive the American people of money. The Obama campaign slogan, Romney, rich, sexist, racist, jackass. Now let's go back to the American voter, the low information voter in many cases. Let's assume you've been watching this messaging battle, and now you have two choices. Barack Obama, not a very good president, versus Mitt Romney, the worst guy ever. Who are you going to vote for? Well, we all know what happened, right? Everybody picked nice guy, bad politician over Mussolini. And we know they did. The exit polls showed that on the major issues of the day, Americans agreed with Mitt Romney. They didn't like Obama's record on jobs, the economy, Obamacare, but when it came to the key question, which candidate cares more about people like me, Romney got blown out, 81% to 18%. Now, this is basically bullying tactics. When somebody calls you a racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe because you happen to disagree with them about tax policy or same-sex marriage or abortion, that's bullying. When you get slandered because you happen to disagree with them about global warming or the government shutdown, that's bullying as well. When somebody labels you a bad human being because they disagree with you, they are bullying you. They are attacking your character without justification. That's nasty, and it makes them nasty. So, that's why we have to debate leftists. But when do we actually do so? First question is why. Not every fight is worth having. You have to pick your fights. And Ben Shapiro says there are really only 3 situations in which debating someone on the left is of value. First, you have to, because your grade depends on it, or your waiter threatens to spit in your food, unless you tell him why same-sex marriage is a detriment to Western civilization. The second occasion is you found an honest leftist, actually willing to be convinced by solid argumentation. Congratulations, you found him, the one and only. He actually wants to sit down and have an evidence-based conversation with you. You have an evidence-based conversation with him. Everything is hunky-dory. And then you ride off on your separate unicorns. Yeah, exactly. Don't hold your breath. Third, you should debate a leftist if there is an audience. And I think this is the true reason when you should do it. The goal of the debate will not be to win over the leftist, because he's a bigot. He's an ideologue. And you're not going to convince him or her to be friends with you. That person already disagrees with you, and they're not going to be convinced by your words of wisdom and your sparkling rhetorical flourishes. The goal will be to destroy the leftist in as public a way as humanly possible. So here are the 11 rules. Once you know that now the time has come to have that debate. Rule number 1, walk towards the fire. Ben Shapiro says that's a rule he learned from his mentor, Andrew Breitbart. He was a very clever tactician who understood the fight at a gut level. He got that politics is warfare by other means, and that you have to treat it like war. The left knows this is war, and they know you are the enemy. You are to be castigated. You will get punched. That's the way it'll go, because that's how the left wins, through intimidation and cruelty. You have to take the punch, you have to brush it off. You have to be willing to take the punch. Rule number 2, hit first. Don't take the punch first, hit hard. Hit where it counts. Now, what does Ben Shapiro mean with that? He says you've got to do your research. You have to know your opponent. You have to know what he's going to say, what his favorite tactics are, and what his default positions will be. You need to learn your opposition inside out. Rule number 3, frame your opponent. I have argued that the left's entire playbook consists of a single play, characterizing the opposition, and it's very effective. The only way to get beyond character arguments is to frame your opponent, make it toxic for him to slur you. This is the vital first step. It is the only first step. For example, it's the reason that the right consistently loses the black and Hispanic vote. And this, by the way, is a very, very good lesson that Ben Shapiro is giving us. Not because the right's policies are so abhorrent to blacks and Hispanics, but because blacks and Hispanics have been told for generations that conservatives hate them. Now, there's no way to convince someone that you don't hate him or her. Right? It's like saying, answering the question, have you stopped beating your wife? You can convince him or her, however, that your opposition is a liar and a hater. When the leftist calls a conservative racist, the conservative tendency is to defend by explaining that you aren't a racist. I've got black friends, whatever. This is a losing battle. And Ben Shapiro goes on to say, there is another important point here. Don't wait for your opponent to call you a racist, right, before going on the offensive. You've researched your opponent, you've done the game planning, you know he's going to call you a racist, because he always calls his opponents racist. So hit him first by pointing out his vicious tactic. This is something that Ben Shapiro did when he was interviewed on CNN's Piers Morgan program, and they were talking about gun control. Exactly. And Ben Shapiro basically was able to wipe the floor with Piers Morgan. So frame your opponent. Don't let him call you whatever he wants, but show that he is a liar, show that he's a hater, and then people won't listen to what he's saying. Frame the debate, same as for the opponent, do the same for debate. This is another thing the left is good at. They have buzzwords they use to direct the debate towards unwinnable positions for you. They are tolerant, diverse, fighters for social justice. So if you oppose them, you're intolerant, xenophobic, and in favor of injustice. Ben Shapiro says all these terms are a crock if you consider them as absolute moral values. The left is wildly intolerant of religious people and conservatives. That's why they're interested in forcing Christian bakers to cater to same-sex weddings. They are anti-intellectual diversity. Look at what goes on in the colleges. Right? They stifle conservatism on the campus and in the media. And as for social justice, justice, if social is supposed to be opposed to individual, then social justice is by definition unjust. Anyway, Ben Shapiro says the left's use of magical buzzwords places you in a corner against supposed universal values that aren't universal or universally held. So it's important that you neuter those buzzwords quickly, because otherwise you'll be arguing against nonsense terms that can be used against you. Okay, folks, time for another break. Before I do that, I want to welcome Babs, my good friend Radio Wannabe, who has finally found me here at Spreaker.com. Welcome back. Babs, nice to see you again, and but I'm going to go quiet for a moment because, as I like to say, got to pay the rent here. So stick with me. I'll be back after these messages.
Are you at least 62 years old like me? Could you use an extra $50,000, $100,000 or more to live a better life? Then please consider the benefits a reverse mortgage can provide to you. With a reverse mortgage, you can have your mortgage payments stopped altogether and get equity out of your home to live on. And you can use the money to help you live a better life. How nice would that be, not to have a mortgage payment? Qualifying for a reverse mortgage is simple, since there are no income, asset, employment, or credit requirements. However, you must be 62 years or older, own your home outright, or have a very low balance on the mortgage, and be prepared to live in it throughout the rest of the loan. Call now for more information.
800-704-1662. 800-704-1662. 800-704-1662. That's 800-704-1662.
I will never forget the day my son Jeremy told me he hated me and slammed the door in my face. I'm behavioral therapist Janet Lehman. Behavior problems can turn the child you love and your life into a nightmare. That's why my husband James and I created the Total Transformation, the step-by-step program that shows you how to fix the worst behavior problems and get your child to respect and listen to you again. No matter what the behavior, defiance, backtalk, angry outbursts, disrespect, we can help you stop it. Now you can get the Total Transformation for free. All you need to do is get the program and let us know how it works for you. You can keep it forever for free.
Limited number of free programs available. Call now. 1-800-259-1409. 1-800-259-1409. 1-800-259-1409. That's 1-800-259-1409.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And this is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, British by birth, American by choice. We're into the last segment of the show, so I'm going to run quickly down Ben Shapiro's rules for debating leftists. We were talking about rule number 4, frame the debate, and he gave some good examples. He says, before the break, I was saying, you have to neuter the buzzwords that they use. And he says, don't accept the premises of their arguments, which are normally largely buzzword-based. On same-sex marriage, for example, the question is not how same-sex marriage hurts your marriage. That's nonsensical. That's a stupid question. Like asking how enslavement of others hurts you personally. The question is whether a child needs a mother and a father. The question is not whether two people who love each other should be given state sanction. Even the left recognizes that such a definition is too broad, given that it could include incestuous relationships. So you see, there's always ways to turn it around, and you see the next rule also ties in that. But one more example. If you're discussing global warming, the proper question is not whether man is causing global warming, because we all know probably he is. The question is, can man fix global warming? to which the universally acknowledged answer is essentially no, unless we are willing to revert to the pre-industrial age. So you see how you have to turn that around, and that's actually rule number 5, spot inconsistencies in the left's arguments. So let's take an argument, for example, leftists prefer to argue half measures in which they don't truly believe. For example, they say they want to ban assault weapons to stop gun murders. Well, but that argument is silly because handguns are used to kill far more people than so-called assault weapons. But they won't argue in favor of a blanket gun ban because they'll know that they will lose. So, and for healthcare, for example, they say everybody should have healthcare and everybody must buy healthcare, but they don't mandate that a certain percentage of the population go to medical school, because if you take it to its logical extent, that's what they have to do. If you say everybody's going to have healthcare, then they must mandate that X percent of the people go to medical school. Rule number 6, force leftists to answer questions. And Shapiro says it's really a kind of reverse of rule 4. Leftists are only comfortable when they're framing the argument, when they're forcing you to answer questions. If they have to answer questions, they begin to scratch their heads. Rule number 7, don't get distracted. You probably notice when arguing with someone on the left, every time you begin to make a point, that leftists begin shouting, "It was George Bush's fault." And how true is that one? Rule number 8, you don't have to defend people on your side. Just because someone is on your side doesn't mean you have to defend everything he or she says. For example, Ronald Reagan was not a god. He himself would have said that. Don't follow people, follow principle. If you don't know something, admit it. Here's a very good example. Mitt Romney would have benefited from that. When he brought up Benghazi in the Candy Crowley debate, he wasn't fluent on the topic, and that was very clear. The result, he got wiped on the floor, even though he was actually correct. And then number 10, let the other side have meaningless victories. Yeah, the Republicans have bad things as well. Just tell them that. How about immigration reform? We're all in favor of immigration reform. Just define immigration reform. But we're all for, so give him that. Give your opponent that victory. And rule number 11, and this will depend, obviously, here on the radio, that doesn't matter so much, but elsewhere it may. Body language matters. Remember back in 2008 when John McCain was debating Barack Obama? You had a tall, relatively good-looking black dude versus a short, hunched-over, angry-looking, balding white refugee from casting for the Emperor Palpatine. So that can be important. But I think the first 10 definitely are very interesting. So remember, go to the site www.truthrevolt.org and see if you can get hold of that ebook. It's really, I think it's free if I remember rightly. Really worth reading, and use it in your next debate, right? For decades, conservatives have been hit by bullies, and there's only one way to deal with bullies. In the words of the White House, punch back twice as hard. Okay, folks, we are at the end of the show. Time flies when you're having fun, and I hear the music starting. So it's time to say TTFN. Thanks to all my live listeners. Come back again next week. Thank you for listening to the show. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's topics. Whether you listened live, to a recording, or to a rebroadcast, I appreciate the time you share with me. We need to spread the message of liberty far and wide, so please tell your friends and family about the show. Thank you for helping to keep the beacon of hope burning. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, signing off. God bless America, and remember, L3, long live liberty.
Patriot come lately. British by birth. American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.